Okay, when we last left off in our book, The Tale of Despereaux, all three of our main characters' paths finally crossed. We have Miggery-So, Roscuro, and of course, Despereaux, and they are all together right now in the dungeon. Miggery-So had to bring Gregory the jailer's lunch down to him, and while she did that, Roscuro heard that she wanted to become a princess. And remember, he's trying to get revenge on the real Princess P. So he heard that and he took his opportunity and he introduced himself to Miggery-So. And he basically told her that he can make her deepest, darkest wishes come true. At the same time, someone snuck onto Gregory the jailer's lunch tray. Do you have any guesses who maybe snuck and was making mouse-like noises on the tray? That's right, it's our friend Despereaux. Remember, Despereaux got thrown in the dungeon by his own brother because the Mouse Council told him that he should be thrown into the dungeon for talking to a human. So now, all three of them are going back up into the light, and we will see what happens. We finished book the 3rd. Remember, I said there were 4 books inside of this one book, and we are now on book the 4th. It is called Recalled into the Light. Chapter 34. Kill 'em, even if they's already dead. This sounds scary. Reader, did you forget about our small mouse? I hope you didn't. Back to the light. That was what Gregory whispered to him when he wrapped Despereaux in his napkin and placed him on the tray. And then Mig, after her conversation with Roscuro, carried the tray into the kitchen. And when she saw Cook, she shouted, "It's me, Miggery-So, back from the deep downs." "Ah, lovely," said Cook. "Ain't we all relieved?" Mig put the tray on the counter. "Oh, remember way back at the beginning? Gregory said he wouldn't hurt Despereaux because Despereaux could tell him stories, and he said he would save his life. So that's how he did it. He wrapped up Despereaux in his napkin and put the napkin on the tray. He knew that Mig would be coming down to collect his tray." Wow. "Here, here," said Cook. "Your duties ain't done. You must clear it." "What?" shouted Mig. "You must clear the tray," shouted Cook. She reached over and took hold of the napkin and gave it a good shake. Despereaux tumbled out of the napkin and landed right directly plop into a measuring cup full of oil. "Ack!" said Cook. "A mouse in my kitchen, in my cooking oil, in my measuring cup! You may kill him!" Mig bent her head and looked at the mouse slowly sinking to the bottom of the glass cup. "Poor little Meesy," she said, and she stuck her hand into the oil and pulled him out by his tail. Despereaux, gasping and coughing and blinking at the light, could have wept at joy at his rescue, but he was not given time to cry. "Kill him!" shouted the cook. "Gore!" said Meg. "All right." Holding Despereaux by the tail, she went to get the kitchen knife. But the mouse tail, covered as it was in oil, was slick and difficult to hold on to, and Meg, in reaching for the knife, loosened her grip and Despereaux fell to the floor. Meg looked down at the little bundle of brown fur. "Gore!" she said. "That killed him for sure." "Kill him, even if he's already dead," shouted Cook. "That's my philosophy with mice. If they're alive, kill him. If they're dead, kill him. That way you can be certain that you got yourself a dead mouse, which is the only kind of mouse to have." "That's some good sausophy, that is. Kill him, even if they's already dead." "Hurry, you cauliflower-ear girl," shouted Cook. "Hurry!" Despereaux lifted his head from the floor. The afternoon sun was shining through the large kitchen window. He had time to think about how miraculous the light was, and then it disappeared, and Meg's face loomed into view. She studied him, breathing through her mouth. "Little Meesy," she said, "ain't you gonna skedaddle?" Despereaux looked for a moment into Meg's small, concerned eyes, and then there came a blinding flash and the sound of metal moving through the air as Meg brought the kitchen knife down, down, down. Despereaux felt a very intense pain in his hindquarters. He leapt up into action. Reader, he scurried. He scurried like a real-life professional mouse. He zigged to the left and zagged to the right. "Gore!" shouted Meg. "I missed him!" "Ain't that a surprise?" said Cook, just as Despereaux scurried under a crack in the pantry door. "I got the little Meesy's tail, though," said Meg. She bent over and picked up Despereaux's tail and held it up, proudly displaying it to Cook. Well, there's our friend Despereaux with no tail. That's gotta hurt. Did any of you notice? He does not have a tail. Now we know why. Meg chopped it off. "So," shouted Cook, "what good will that do us when the rest of the mouse disappeared into the pantry?" I don't know, said Meg, and she braced herself as Cook advanced upon her, intending to give her a good clout to the ear. I don't know. Chapter 35. The Knight in Shining Armor. Despereaux was pondering the reverse of that question. He was wondering not what he would do with his tail, but what he would do without it. He was sitting on a bag of flour high atop a shelf in the pantry, crying for what he had lost. The pain in his hindquarters was intense, and he cried because of it. But he also cried because he was happy. He was finally out of the dungeon. He had been recalled to life. His rescue had happened just in time for him to save the Princess Pea from the terrible fate that the rat had planned for her. So Despereaux wept with joy, and with pain, and with gratitude. He wept with exhaustion and despair, and with hope. He wept with all the emotions a young small mouse who had been sent to his death and then been delivered from it in time to save his beloved could feel. Reader, the mouse wept. And then he lay down on the sack of flour and slept. Outside the castle, the sun set and the stars came out one by one, and then they disappeared and gave way to the rising sun. And Despereaux still slept, and while he slept, he dreamt. He dreamt of the stained glass windows and the dark of the dungeon. In Despereaux's dream, the light came to life, brilliant and glorious, in the shape of a knight swinging a sword. The knight fought the dark. That's knight like K-N-I-G-H-T, like a knight in shining armor. And the dark took many shapes. First, the dark was his mother uttering phrases in French. And then the dark became his father, beating the drum. The dark was Furlough, wearing a black hood and shaking his head no. And the dark became a huge rat, smiling a smile that was evil and sharp. The dark, Despereaux cried, turning his head to the left. The light, he murmured, turning his head to the right. He called out to the knight. He shouted, "Who are you? Will you save me?" But the knight did not answer him. "Tell me who you are," Despereaux shouted. The knight stopped swinging his sword. He looked at Despereaux. "You know me," he said. "No," said Despereaux, "I don't." "You do," said the knight. He slowly took the armor off his head and revealed nothing, no one. The suit of armor was empty. "No, oh no," said Despereaux. "There is no knight in shining armor. It's all just make-believe, like happily ever after." And in his sleep, reader, the small mouse began to cry. Chapter 36, What Meg Carried. And while the mouse slept, Roscuro put his terrible plan into effect. Would you like to hear, reader, how his plan unfolded? The story is not a pretty one. There is violence in it and cruelty, but stories that are not pretty have a certain value too, I suppose. Everything, as you well know, having lived in this world long enough to have figured out a thing or two yourself, cannot always be sweetness and light. Listen, this is how it happened. First, the rat finished once and for all the job he started long ago. He chewed right through Gregory's rope, all the way through it, so that the jailer became lost in the maze in the dungeon. Late at night, when the castle was dark, the serving girl, Miggery-So, climbed the stairs to the princess's room. In her hand, she carried a candle, and in the pockets of her apron were two very ominous things. In the right pocket, hidden in case they should encounter anyone on the stairs, was a rat with a spoon on his head and a cloak of red around his shoulders. In the left pocket was a kitchen knife, the same kitchen knife that Miggery-So had used to cut off the tail of a certain mouse. These were the things, a rat, a knife, and a candle, that Meg carried with her as she climbed up the stairs. "Gore!" she shouted to the rat. "It's dark, ain't it?" Yes, whispered Roscuro from her pocket. "It's quite dark, my dear." "When I'm a princess," began Meg. "Shh," said Roscuro. "May I suggest that you keep your glorious plans for the future to yourself? And may I further suggest that you keep your voice down to a whisper? We are, after all, on a covert mission. Do you know how to whisper, my dear?" "I do," shouted Meg. "Then please," said Roscuro, "please institute this knowledge immediately." "Gore," whispered Meg. "All right." "Thank you," said Roscuro. "Do I need to review with you again our plan of action?" "I got it all straight here in my head," whispered Meg, and she tapped the side of her head with one finger. "How comforting," said Roscuro. "Perhaps, my dear, we should go over it, just to be sure." "Well," said Meg, "we go into the princess's room, and she will be sleeping and snoozing and snoring, and I will wake her up and show her the knife and say, 'If you does not want to get hurt, princess, you must come with me.'" "And you will not hurt her," said Roscuro. No, I won't, because I want her to live. That way she can be my lady-in-waiting when I become the princess." "Exactly," said Roscuro. "That will be the divine comeuppance." "Gore," whispered Meg. "Yes, her divine comeuppance." Meg had, of course, no idea what the phrase divine comeuppance meant, but she very much liked the sound of it, and she repeated it over and over to herself until Roscuro said, "And then?" "And then," continued Meg, "I tells her to get out of the princess bed and come with me on a little journey." "Ha!" said Roscuro. "A little journey. That's right. Ha! I love the understatement of that phrase. A little journey. Oh, what a little journey it will be, indeed." "And then," said Meg, who was now coming to her favorite part in the plan, "we take her to the deep downs, and we give her some long lessons in how to be a serving girl. And we give her some short lessons, and we gives me some short lessons on how to be a princess. And when we is all done studying up, we switch places. I gets to be the princess, and she gets to be the maid. Gore!" Reader, this is the very plan that Roscuro had presented to Meg when he first met her. It was, of course, a ridiculous plan. No one would ever, not for one blind minute, mistake Meg for the princess, or the princess for Meg. But Megarito, as I pointed out to you before, was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And reader, she wanted so desperately to become a princess. She wanted, oh how she wanted, and it was because of this terrible wanting that she was able to believe Roscuro's plan with every ounce of her heart. The rat's real plan was in a way more simple and more terrible. He intended to take the princess to the deepest, darkest part of the dungeon. He intended to have Meg put chains on the princess's hands and feet, and he intended to keep the glittering, glowing, laughing princess in the dungeon forever.